Acknowledge our senior leadership support from Provost Cynthia Barnhart and the Institute Community and Equity Officer, John Dozier. I'd also like to give a special thanks to our ICO colleagues, Polina, Beatriz, Rachel, Divya, and Aisha, who helped plan and promote this event. And I also want to acknowledge the other MLK scholars who are in person as well as joining us online today. And a quick note just about our session today. We'll run an hour. We will have some time. I know Daniel's presentation will be engaging and interactive, but we'll also leave some time for folks who are joining us online to ask questions and chat and making sure that your questions are said out loud for everyone in the room here. This session will be recorded, and there is also live captioning available for folks joining us on Zoom. And as a friendly reminder, please stay muted during the presentation. And if you'd like to stay updated on ICO's events, like the MLK Scholar presentations, as well as other programming, please go to our website at ico.mit.edu and subscribe to our newsletter with all of that information. And now on to our main event. Our speaker today is Daniel Auguste. Daniel Auguste is an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology at Florida Atlantic University and a faculty affiliate at the Social Policy Institute at Washington University in St. Louis. He earned his PhD in sociology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and his research interests include inequality, stratification, economic and organizational sociology, and entrepreneurship. At MIT, Daniel's faculty host is Professor Roberto Fernandez at the Sloan School of Management. And without further ado, welcome, Daniel.
I'd really like it to be this talk. Like it to be a conversation among us about entrepreneurship, social mobility, and the American dream, and how economic inequality undermines it all. And for that, I will briefly share with you the key question that underlines my research agenda, and then a brief summary of my academic journey, so you can put my interest in this type of question into context, and a brief summary of my research and the intersections of inequality and entrepreneurship. And then I will conclude with some suggestions for your thought and reactions. So because I'd like it to be a conversation, a discussion, and I'm gonna make sure I leave enough time, at least 20 minutes for us to engage, and then I will provide some question at the end so to do that, right? Okay, so the key question that really guides my research agenda is, how do we create shared economic prosperity? And for this, for you to put that into context, I'd like to share with you how I get here, standing here with you, talking about inequality and stratification and entrepreneurship, and how to create a more equitable, inclusive economy. So I was born and grew up in Haiti. I was born in the northern part of Haiti, and when my sister and I, when we were really young, our parents moved to Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti, where I grew up, and under-resourced community where I experienced economic marginalization firsthand. And there, my passions for economic justice and for finding ways to create a more like an inclusive economy, a shared economic prosperity has developed. And I was fortunate after high school to receive a scholarship to come to the United States to continue my college education. I went to a small liberal art college in Lookout Mountain, Georgia, where I focused my studies on economic and community development. And by the time there, doing my studies, I was fascinated by the idea that entrepreneurship, and I was excited by this idea that entrepreneurship can be a path to achieving social mobility and creating economic prosperity. But by the time I graduated, I was left with more questions than answers. And the questions is, if entrepreneurship is such an ideal path to social mobility, why are there so few entrepreneurs? And also not only few entrepreneurs, so few successful entrepreneurs. And further question that puzzle me is, why are some social, racial, and ethnic groups underrepresented among entrepreneurs, and more particularly among successful entrepreneurs? And an example of that is in 2020, only 6% of businesses in the United States were owned by Hispanic, and 2% of them were owned by African Americans. So in quest for answers to these questions, so I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for my PhD, where in sociology, where I focused my dissertation work on the understanding of the structural forces that underlie entrepreneurial development and success. And within that, I investigate the consequences of economic inequality for business creation and success. So far, if you look at the body of my work, published research and work in progress, you see that the insight here is that inequality is quite harmful for entrepreneurship. So I'm going to briefly, although I'm still digging into data and in research to find a deeper insight for that, but I'm going to briefly summarize, share with you some insight from my current research, just so you can put this claim into context. So overall, what I found is that inequality weakens entrepreneurship, right, for everyone in the society. And if you look at this is from low inequality, high inequality, and measured as income inequality, gap between upper and bottom income. And we can chat a little bit more about it, and this is the Gini coefficient. And those are the income brackets categories. What we see here, as we move from low to high, there is a decrease in the probability of entrepreneurial entry for everyone, well, all of the three groups, right? Yet that decrease is a lot higher and at the upper income category, and from low to high, we got a 74% decrease in probability of undertaking of entering entrepreneurship, compared to a 64% decrease for the bottom income category. So what this suggests is that policies that we distribute income or resources to those at the top are less likely to stimulate business creation, right? And it makes sense, right? Because what inequality does, it increases the proportions of the population at the bottom of the income bracket, and therefore increasing the proportion of the population with financial, right, constraint, and therefore shrinking, reducing the purchasing power in the economy or the community. And therefore, as a result, you have a decrease, a limited economic opportunities, right, for entrepreneurship. You know, to put it simply, you need demand. If there is not a demand for products, that product is not going to be produced. It's that simple. Therefore, the opportunity for entrepreneurial entry is not going to be there. And I would love to hear more your insight about this and what you have to say with this. And let me move to another insight from my research. Not only it is harmful for entrepreneurship, but it also increases inequality, or high level of inequality also weakens the importance of human capital for entrepreneurship. And that is even stronger at the upper end of the education strata. And this also makes sense because entrepreneurs, regardless of how creative, how skillful they may be, they can only leverage what's available in their environments and communities. So entrepreneurs are not magicians. right? And they don't fall from heaven. So they emerge out of a social context, or like a context, and the structure of opportunity in that context gonna shape the entrepreneurial outcomes. There may still be entrepreneurs, but the type of entrepreneurs you're gonna have, I'm gonna show in a minute, it's gonna be different because the opportunity structure is shaping that outcome. Does that make sense? Now, again, here again, not only, as you could see here, right? And now not only inequality undermines the importance of human capital for entrepreneurship, but high inequality, extreme inequality also pushes people into survivalist entrepreneurship. You will have entrepreneurs because people are creative. The entrepreneurship ability is there, but how the type of entrepreneurs you have as in a high economic inequality regime is going to be more survivalist. Meaning that, as I said, and then in this case, it's higher among it's higher at the lower end of the income strata, which probably makes sense. And what that suggests is policies that redistribute resources, income to the top, are likely to create an economy of survivalists, necessity-driven entrepreneurs, right? Not a innovative type, right? What the desirable type of entrepreneurship that can create jobs, that can move the economy forward, but it's going to be we're going to have entrepreneurs. They're going to be a bunch of survivalist type of entrepreneurs. It's not because they're not creative, but that's what the context, the ecosystem generates. So another key insight in my search for answers to the question, how do we create a more shared economy? Another insight from my work is that inequality is particularly harmful for entrepreneurship in places like the United States. And let me show you why. And I would love to hear your insight why you think this may be the case, but I'm going to provide some working insight. So here, this is low inequality here. You got high inequality here. And here you have advanced economies. This is the line for advanced economies, and like the United States. And that's the line for low income, less advanced economies like Colombia and I could put Haiti there, but Haiti is not in this data set, but it would be a little bit more nuanced to make this, but we can talk about later. But here, as you move from low to high economic inequality, you have a decrease in the entrepreneurship rate in high and advanced industrial societies like the United States, and you have here an increase in entrepreneurial rates and less advanced industrial societies. And this it makes sense. What it means is that as a society moves toward greater industrializations, right, the locus, right, the drivers of entrepreneurship, the locus of entrepreneurship changes to the extent that a more equitable distribution of resources is necessary for that society to remain entrepreneurial and innovative, right? Because as society, when you move toward industrialization, there is a change in social and organizational structure that shakes the fabric of innovation, right? And therefore, a more equitable distributions of resources is necessary to remain innovative. That's the challenge of remaining innovative. High and extreme inequality is here, based on is a challenge of remaining innovative, right? And this is entrepreneurship. I did the analysis for innovation. It's the same. The graph is the same. right? And so, which makes sense because entrepreneurship is quite related to innovation. Now, having shown this, there is an argument, right? You might have heard of that the expansion, right? The proliferations of the sharing economy and the gig economy is increasing entrepreneurial opportunities by allowing people to earn unlimited income and build wealth while being their own bosses, right? And here I try to evaluate this argument, and this unfortunate event, the COVID-19, provide a natural experiment to test that. If the gig economy, the sharing economy, has been providing people with opportunity to earn, right, unlimited income through entrepreneurship, creating more entrepreneurs, then people should have been able, these people engaging in the sharing economy should have been able to build the financial buffers to help them to sustain, to withstand the economic adversity that that is associated with the gig economy, right? So for this I compared gig workers with other entrepreneurial self-employed workers, right? To gauge, to gauge this, to test this this proposition. And then what we found is that gig workers actually lack the financial buffers necessary for them to withstand the pandemic-induced economic hardships, right? And let me show you some results, really brief results that's gonna demonstrate this. Here, this is gig workers, and this is self-employed entrepreneurial people engaging in entrepreneurial self-employment. And what we see here, gig workers are more likely to be behind in the credit card payment. This is during the COVID-19 pandemic, and more likely to have unpaid credit card balance, and more likely to have lost income, experience income loss, and to have experienced food insecurity, and also to have skipped bills, skip housing payment, and to have been evicted, to have skipped medical payment, not due to fear of COVID, but due to lack of financial resources compared to those engaging in entrepreneurial self-employment. Here, what we conclude is that, well, it seems like the sharing economy may not be increasing entrepreneurial opportunity and therefore allowing people to build wealth. If it does, it's not the entrepreneurial, opportunity-driven type of entrepreneurship, but it may be more necessity-based entrepreneurship, what I just showed here earlier, right? So now I turn to my other question. As I dig, I turn to my other question: why are some groups underrepresented and among business owners? And the insight here from my preliminary results and things that I've been working on. Actually, this part is what I've been working on during my time here at MIT. And the insight is that wealth disparity is to blame for the underrepresentations of certain social, racial, and ethnic groups among entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs. Let me provide some insight and then for your judgment, and then I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. You may be helping me write those papers, by the way. So here, this is a population first. This is a sample of white and Black business owners and people working for organization or firm, wage and salary earners, right? But we see here the gap of business owners, the gap between Black and white and is 4%, right? 4% among Blacks, 10% among white. And to put this into context, the national rate of business ownership is between 10 and 11% or 12%. That's what it is in the US. In time of economic downturns, you may find a lot of those, what I showed earlier, necessity-driven entrepreneur that would come, but temporarily that rate may move to 12, maybe 13%, but generally that it's around like 10 to 11%. And meaning that this gap is significant, as this number shows. And what I also look at student loan debt, racial disparity, and the negative sign indicates that it is significantly higher among Black, just because, white man, Black, and then this negative sign, it means it's higher among Black population. And then I also look at net worth, right? Family household net worth, and we see pretty significant, right? The gap, and it's higher among whites. Now, I want to look at racial disparities in business, right? Performance, and to gauge that. Then I focus on the Black and white population among business owners only, right? Cutting my sample to only business owners to gauge the extent to which, and then by looking at business performance, one indicator of business performance, for example. I'm looking for around many of them, but for this talk, I'm pointing out this one. And what we see here, the total profit by difference is pretty significant, higher among white business owners compared to Black business owners. And then among businesses with a positive profit, it is about 17%. You just multiply this by 100, 17% among higher among white business owners, and also businesses with a profit of $10,000 or more, and we find it is like a 15% higher among white business owners. Now, if we look at student loan debt, now Black business owners are winning there. They have a lot more of that business, and the negative sign is showing that. And now, then if you look at net worth among business owners, well, white business owners are winning there a lot more. The net worth is a lot higher. And think about the idea of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship constitutes a path to social mobility, and therefore may help to close the racial wealth gap. That could tell you how possible this may be and what can be done to make it a reality. Now, another thing I would like to draw your attention to is here, what this indicates is that there are more Black business owners at the lower end of the education strata, but more white business owners at the higher end of the education strata. I'm looking forward to hearing your thought, reaction to this, and I'm excited about it actually. Now, so I'm looking now. I showed you those gaps between wealth and student loan debt. How much of that can we implicate in the racial gap and business ownership? And here at the lower end of the wealth distributions, it seems like there's not much of a gap, of a racial gap here in business ownership. But as we move to the higher end of the wealth distribution, there is quite of a gap in the impact of wealth on business ownership. And now, I also want to gauge, because I showed you the gap, racial gap in student loan debt. Well, to what extent this may be implicated in the racial gap and business performance, such as a business earning or making like a 10,000 or more in profit. And here we see this is household value. This is in log, right? And then you just take this is the 10 and power this, and then you get the actual number. But just for some statistical reasons, you have to log that, and most of you know that. And then what this is saying, that student loan debt adversely impact the likelihood of making a profit for all businesses, for both Blacks and white businesses. However, this impact is a lot worse for Black business owners. And if you're looking at that slope, it's not, it's almost straight, right? So what this is saying, like, there is at the start, there is a gap at the start, right? But as we move to higher value of student loan debt, and the gap and the likelihood of making a profit of 10,000 or more really increases. Now, how do we bridge this gap between entrepreneurship and social mobility, right? And I have some suggestions, and I would like to hear your reactions to them. And I argued that reducing barriers to successful business creations among low resource populations is important, is necessary to do that. And one way I argue that can be done is by increasing access to wealth building among low resource population. And we know one ways of building wealth is through home ownership, by increasing access to home ownership, and by also increasing access to equity markets, and also access to financial capital and communities, underserved or under resource communities would be important for that. And also a key thing, if we're thinking about it, the middle class, generally the middle class builds wealth by selling their labor. Well, if you really want to strengthen the economy or improve entrepreneurship by stimulating, by purchasing power, or giving people a chance to take risks, because wealth, economic security give you the freedom to fail. So if you have the freedom to fail, you're gonna take risks. And by improving the labor market mobility, allowing workers to move across organizations or firms and strengthen their bargaining power, and by also implementing policies that increase the quality and well-paying jobs, and by also strengthening labor power unions, you also strengthening the middle class and family dynamics, because a lot of the entrepreneurship emerge from family dynamics. Right? Therefore, we can create a more shared economic prosperity, and bridging this entrepreneurship mobility gap, therefore making this idea of the American dream close to be a reality. That's my claim, and I would like to hear your thought on that. And I would like to hear your thought on these questions. So you don't have to, stay there, but I would like to hear your thought on why is the adverse effect of income inequality on entrepreneurial entry greater at the top of the income strata than at the lower end? And why does income inequality weaken the importance of human capital for entrepreneurial entry? And why is inequality more likely to push low-income folks into survivalist entrepreneurship compared to higher income? And then finally, why are Black business owners more likely to be from the lower end of the education strata compared to white business owners, and white business owners are more likely to be from the upper end of the education strata. This is the discussion. So that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you. When I think about white business owners versus Black business owners, I think about what is their access to capital, right? And what are those discriminatory practices that are in place structurally that sort of come into play that sort of widens that gap. I mean, I think that when you think about building wealth, and the example that you gave was in real estate, for example, and we all know some time ago, I guess it was in the 90s, where redlining was occurring in specific communities of color. And so there was no access to actually own those properties in order to begin to build wealth. And so over time, I think that disparity just grows and grows and grows. And so I think it's an issue of access, and the structural issues around financial accessibility plays a big role in this.
This is great. And yeah, this is awesome. And what do you all think?
Thank you. I think to actually to piggyback on that, I think it's also, at least to my understanding, a form of not just capital in terms of actual wealth, but social capital. And then I think it was very interesting to me in one of the slides that there didn't seem to be a huge difference with the business owners, Black versus white, in the education. They like the rates of education. And I looked at that and thought, well, that's interesting, because I would have thought there would have been a bigger one. And I thought, well, wouldn't some of that be that, you know, if you're white and you happen to come from a higher income background and you go to the same school as someone who's Black from a lower income community, just your social connections that you have going in and that you're going to form at that school, you know, so maybe that doesn't get you alone, but maybe that gets you in the room with another entrepreneur who mentors you that you would never meet if you didn't come from that background. And so I think there's also the idea of like, how do we increase those opportunities, or I guess lessen that gap of like social, and I guess social capital is the best way I can put it.
Yeah. No, this is interesting, and you're getting at we're getting at the structural condition, right? Like the environment. So it's not where, I mean, I would say, I don't think if you take any sample of the population, Black and white, I don't think anyone can make the argument you would find naturally one of them are more creative than the other. No. Right? So therefore, the gap you see in that, there must be something else. There must be something else. And the idea of social capital, the idea of that, you know, like you went to school with someone, and then somehow, you know, you don't plan them, you don't know. A lot of entrepreneurs, they don't know if they're going to be entrepreneurs, right? It just happened. And if I may make that claim, a lot of it, even we are better off by just like increasing the pool and then hoping to get the next one. And because the fact that it's just you don't know where the next innovative idea is going to come from. And I think you're better off by just like putting everyone in the pool, and then you're hoping for the best. Because I would think it's not because white men are more creative than women and Black folks to be in Silicon Valley, to be overrepresented in Silicon Valley. Would you agree? Yes. So this, one could say, if Silicon Valley, if what's happening there is so important, crucial for the innovative power potential of the economy, we are doing something wrong by not tapping into the full innovative potential that we have, just because the way we structure opportunity in the society. It's just like, it's nonsense, right? It's just like nonsense. Yeah. So, and anyone else, like what, I mean, if you're thinking about why do you think, I mean, what do you all think there is, but this is interesting. Why do you all think there is such a, like I mean, we can go there too, but like here, why is that white folks are more on the upper end of the white business owners are more on the upper end of the education strata, and then the reverse, you find Black folks on the lower end. So what's in that process of business creation and thinking about the, everything else you may think that may shape this to be the data, because the data we make the data we're seeing, we don't have to have that data. Right? Make sense? We don't have to have that data, and we could have a different story. I could be telling a different story using the data here. So yeah.
You mentioned Silicon Valley, which I think is, I don't know how much you may have looked at that specifically in your research, because it's interesting to me that I think we look at Silicon Valley as like a emblematic of entrepreneurship in this country and very successful entrepreneurship. And at the same time, the area there has created one of the most unequal societies like we've seen in the country amidst all that wealth. So is that an example of, I mean, I think we're getting to a lot of these racial and systemic things here, but it was interesting to see such a successful entrepreneurship environment not create social mobility, but actually do the opposite.
Yeah, I agree. And that, anyone else? What do you all think? Anyone? Yeah. Ines.
I'm just going to turn the question back to you, Daniel, because you're a sociologist, and I'm just speaking anecdotally.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I am not a scientist. So I'm speaking anecdotally, from stories and people I know. I'm thinking of this last question that you asked about where Black business owners are coming from in terms of their educational achievement and white business owners. And I wonder if there's an issue of, we heard this in some of the stories that were video recorded. We heard this at the MLK celebration yesterday as well. I wonder how much of it might be when folks who are marginalized achieve a certain level of educational status, that usually implies they have access to some greater wealth, right?
Yeah.
And I know, like when I think about your slides of Haiti, when I think about my ancestral heritage, there is a strong impetus of service, of giving back in some way. And I wonder what positions the Black owners who are at a higher level of education, what positions they're holding. Are they going into education? Are they going into social work? Like, where are they going? Like, are they in service fields where they may not be generating as much wealth? And I'm wondering, I don't know if I'm articulating this right. I'm wondering if there's something there.
Yeah.
I think about students of color, for example, even at MIT, who are first generation students. Those students are bringing in with them a burden that their white peers who are several generations back, who have been educated, are not thinking about. Because you're not there just for yourself. You're there for everyone who came before you in your family, right? And there's a burden, there's a responsibility that's placed. And I'm thinking when people feel that, it might be scarier to take those risks. So even when you have achieved some wealth, there are people who are dependent upon you, and you're thinking about the people after you, and it might be scarier to take that risk. Does that make sense? I don't know if
it does.
That's why I'm asking it back at you, because you're the sociologist. So.
No, it does make sense. It does make sense. Anyone want to take a shot at? Do have time? Do have what time? What's the time? We have because so what you're saying here is like the burden is that, well, you have many people you're thinking of, and I think one key thing you said, like, we're taking the risk, right? And which is really key. The community risk, right? Yeah. And why you're not taking risks? are those kids, Black and brown kids, like, are they less, are they more risk averse, or they're natural, they have something in their, DNA that or they're not taking, they're not risk takers? I would say no, right? So then if they're not taking risk, why? And then you explain it, maybe they have, oh, just like it's not, but why would, because you have something, people, your ancestors, people thinking of you, making you not taking risk? I mean, why would that itself makes you not taking risk? I mean, like entrepreneurial risk. Like, why would that be the case? What else? I think there may be other things. Would you say?
I would say, I mean,
Access?
access to capital, access to knowledge, and, when I think it's like indicated sort of the differences in sort of community college,
Uh-huh.
and the numbers, you go to that slide.
Maybe here, yeah.
College degree, high school, some college,
Mhm.
those numbers,
Uh-huh.
which are very similar to college degree, which,
Uh-huh.
and graduate degrees, but the difference between white and black, I think there's a story right there.
Yep.
There's a story right there that there's some level of disparity
Mhm.
in terms of, sort of, even when you think about college recruitment, who's the guard who has access to that information for these students to go on
Mhm.
beyond high school, on the associate level,
Mhm.
the gatekeepers. And I mean, I think there are a number of factors there
Yeah.
that we can talk about, but I think that that right there really stuck out
Mhm.
to me.
Me too.
Yeah, I think that's, so I mean, there's I think a whole host of things that one can think about. And I think about structural racism in terms of access, that there could be those disparities that sort of line.
Mhm. Yeah, if we're thinking, so Ernest, your combine your statement and, sorry, Denise, yeah, and Chess statements. And if we're thinking about in light of, we can just think about in light of this, right? These two gaps here, it's higher among Black, it's higher over here. And if we link in those, can we extract a story from here, an explanation from this?
Isn't that the risk aversion? You were just mentioning that.
Maybe, right? Maybe Ernest, right? Maybe we can link that to what Ernest was saying. Yes. Exactly. And if you're getting out of high, over here more, but if you get in there out of, let's take a given college graduate kid, like really driven, like that's the ideas, they would, they will do this, they will do that. And then they got out with that huge amount of debt. And what Ernest was saying, they're also thinking about, maybe because they cannot, if I fail, I cannot just go crash at moms and dad, because they're waiting for me to get that next job to give them some, right? As opposed, if I think Dorothy Brown, the whiteness of wealth, she's arguing is that, well, in a book, finding that, well, Black kids or Black, children more likely to not inherit, not getting money from their parents, but they're more likely to give, right? As opposed to a given population of white children, they're more likely to receive. So now, if that's the case, and then we know you're taking a given Black population, simple. Well, if you have higher education, what happens? You likely, maybe your prospect in the labor market is a little bit higher. And then now what's happened is that, well, and your prospect is higher, your risk of failure in entrepreneurship is higher, your prospect in getting a job is higher. well, what does that do with opportunity cost of entering entrepreneurship? It's too high. It's not because they're not risk takers. It's not because they don't have ideas. So it's the wealth gap that is suppressing this. And by not taking that with what's happened to this population here, well, what we know, I do believe entrepreneurship really can be one of the ideal paths to building intergenerational wealth for just nature that, you just like you invest and then you get the return. But if you are successful, what happened? Well, this group over here is taking the opportunity on average of the building that risk and the likelihood. A lot of them gonna fail also, right? As you see, it's about between 10 and 11 or 12, depending on what happening in the economy of the population is business owners, are entrepreneurs. And then you have here, so what happened is just like they're not, this group is having the opportunity to take that advantage, and that group is not a perpetual, they're just going to work, just like to focus. I have to do this, I have to pay that rent, I have to survive, and then it doesn't have time to the freedom to actually take that risk, because wealth gives you that. And in a way, we produce the entrepreneurs that we have. They don't fall, as I mentioned, they don't fall from heaven. Well, there's a lot of entrepreneurial training here at MIT, a lot of entrepreneurial training here at where I'm housed at Sloan. You could give people training as much as you want, but if there is not much here, there's not, right? And if you are drawing from one small pool, and those kids were, one pool of already probably, there's a self-selection in there, right? And then what you have, you just, people may think, oh, it's that hard. Maybe it's not as hard as we may think about it. It's you. Maybe if you get the next, if you get the next Tesla, maybe it's not as an accident as one may think it is. Maybe it's not as just like, maybe we don't have to have only one. Maybe we could have more. If you think about this, right? If we can about like how the environment, how the opportunity structure shapes the entrepreneurial outcomes, meaning the type of entrepreneurs that we have, right? And the type of business that are created. We can just look at, do a Google search on, type of businesses by demographic, by poverty, by income, and you'll see them. But it's not magic, I don't think. It's not just like, it's not as rocket science that we, just taking that entrepreneurs as things that are as a scarce resource. Right? I don't think yeah. So now let me move to that. If we have more time, that's why I leave. I make sure I give you more time to. Oh, well, yeah. Oh, so, yeah. So we have, let's keep talking.
One of the things, I know this is not within the scope of your work, but I think is particularly interesting is that you were mentioning the idea of being risk averse and how that is potentially why people don't necessarily go into the entrepreneurship framework. And I was chatting with a friend about this the other day and about how women, because of the way society works, women often have a bigger burden of caring for children and for caring for parents. And when you have that responsibility, that might potentially lead to a space of being less risk. And that might be something that I think would be interesting to explore even within here, sort of that gender commentary around how does risk averseness and having that responsibility of a larger unit sort of play into that. And I also did have one other interesting thing that I was thinking about is I've been doing a little bit of studies in social class, and it's interesting to think about how the middle class are people who follow the rules, The
Yeah,
middle
yeah.
class are trying not to be poor, but they're trying to be wealthy, and they follow the rules. And the people who are at the bottom of the spectrum don't follow the rules because they have to find some way around the rules to survive. And the people at the top don't follow the rules because there's no one telling them that they have to do it in a certain way because they have the rights. So I think it is interesting what you're talking about is the people, you were saying that Black individuals who have less education are more likely to be creative and to do entrepreneurial, which sort of plays into that idea. But then that white people are more likely at the higher end to be creative, what we might say. But that's really around like they don't have social structures telling them they can't do something, right? So like I think there's this interesting idea of creativity that happens at the bottom and the top of the social spectrums, but for different reasons. And I think that's an interesting way to think about like what's happening between these two racial groups.
Okay, yeah, that's the good point. I want to show you something. Can I just move really quickly from here? That's why I don't like math. See, it's not a good thing. Okay, yeah, I dislike math. Okay. All right, so to your point, what's your name? Age. To your point, this is another paper I'm looking at. This is the gender gap in business ownership, right? This is it in the US, right? And exactly to speak to what you were talking about, and there is that gap, that pressure for like differences in business ownership among between men and women, right? And that also, yeah, and that also, if I can. Oh, yeah, perfect. So, and this is also, if we're looking at this is necessity motivated entrepreneurship, right? And then we see here, this is men, and then this is women. You see, right? As at high level of inequality, you have women's are pushing to necessity motivated entrepreneurship more than men, and that's almost flat for men, right? And that is really yeah, just to and support to your point. And this, it's not just inequality. It's like it's really very harmful for economic prosperity. Now, politically, it's a different thing, right? It just if one could, like, how do I change it? Where I just like get that amount of income and just redistribute it, and then that's the best way of doing it, and you change things. And well, you don't have to have people living in poverty to stimulate entrepreneurship. You don't have, okay, think about it. You keep giving to the top, how much more you can extract from this small sample? How much innovation can you extract from? Because when you have like evolutionary justice, it doesn't work. You got one pool. You've been extracting from it. Well, it's not for any reason we see innovation, right, has been slowing down as inequality has been going up, extreme wealth inequality, and social mobility also. Like if you look at the United States, there's a difference between inequality, economic inequality, and social mobility. Social mobility is the correlation between where you start and where you are. Well, let's say it's 0 to 1. That kind of like that. That's the point. That's the index. But closer to 0 means good, because means that where you start does not really predict where you're gonna be. Closer to 1 means that where you start, there is a strong correlation between your parents' fate, your situation, socioeconomic status, and your socioeconomic status as an adult. In the US, it's been getting closer to 1. And then as a result, and then inequality has been increasing. And what we have seen also, a shrinking of the middle class. And this is dangerous for everything. Everything we can think of. Because you cannot, if you fight in a war, for example, you just decide to use, you have 100 soldiers, for example, you have to use only 30 of them. You're dumb, right? You have 100 soldiers to fight a battle war, and then you say, okay, I'm just gonna use 30. And that, I think that's what we are doing by structuring, making policies that keep increasing opportunity to the top that doesn't need it and that is not really doing much to the to help us. Bye. Thank you.